Always do sober what you do drunk. That'll teach you to keep your mouth shut.
Hemingway said that.
Yes, he did. And he said it to me.
I don't want you to go to Canada tomorrow.
It's for the podcast. It's what I do.
I travel around and I interview weird or interesting people.
So look out, you crazy Canucks! Wandering Wallace takes a raunchy road trip up to the Great White North.
Hello. I'm an old man who has enjoyed a long and storied life at sea. And after eons of oceanic adventure, I know I do not wish to spend my remaining years alone when I have such stories to share.
How far is Bifrost from here?
It's about 2 hours from here.
It's about 2 hours away.
I hate American guys.
Good evening.
It's nice to meet you.
Could I interest you in some tea?
So what happened after the boat sank?
I was alone, and then something very swift and frightening moved by me.
A walrus saved your life?
The walrus is far more evolved than any man I've heard of, present company included.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Would you? Would you?
There. It'll be all right, Mr. Tusk.
He hasn't called me in 3 days. I'm worried.
Why are you doing this?
Are you really mourning your humanity? I don't understand. Who in the hell would want to be human?
I'm so scared. This guy wants to turn me into an animal or something. I don't want to die in Canada.
Something fairly similar to Horns. Tusk.
Tusk.
Yeah. So we saw with Horns, Daniel Radcliffe, for whatever reason, is entitled to his opinion, decided to grow horns on his head.
Right in the old.
For my money, that's a silly thing to do. You shouldn't do that. Justin Long in Tusk
Yeah.
didn't decide to grow tusks, but his friend Michael Parks gave them to him.
There you go.
So, yeah.
Not quite the
Right,
plot,
next, isn't it? Oh, what have I missed? Shall we? How far back should we go? Let's. All right. Kevin Smith.
but Kevin Smith.
He was born
Yeah.
and grew up to be. I was going to do one of those jokes where we go too far back, but I can't be asked. Pretend I did. And laugh at it.
Kevin Smith is a filmmaker.
Yeah, and a podcaster.
Director, writer, podcaster.
He's sort of
weed smoker.
what he probably did, I would think, is he was browsing the internet and he thought, right, I'm going to watch some team fighting league, team fighting championship. Sorry.
Yeah.
Typed in TFC, which by the way, all you need to do is put your finger on the T and then drag it down to C, and you've typed TFC.
Beautiful.
Try it. See. And they typed in TFC, accidentally found our podcast website, and thought, what's a podcast?
There's so much.
I'll
here.
try that. There's so many to choose from.
Ringside, Kalahari,
And then he-
Highside, Headside, TLDR, Nutritious D's.
And then he boop, boop, beep, boop, boop. Scott Mosier, and then Scott Mosier was like, yes. And then he said, do you want to do a podcast? And I was like, yeah. And then they did a podcast, and then like episode 200 and something, Tusk.
Got
Next.
blazed. Made up the idea for Tusk.
Yeah. Alright, yeah, for people who don't know, Kevin Smith does podcasts. He used to do films.
He used to do films and sort of stopped doing films for a while.
Yeah. But then he got so high that he would come up with ideas for films and just have to do them because he's such a passionate kind of guy. And they did an episode of Smodcast, which I happen to remember is called The Walrus and the Carpenter.
I
Episode
remember listening to it.
31B.
Don't think so.
No, it's not. It's on 100 somewhere. And they were talking about a Gumtree advert. I remember when I was.
I remember
listening
I
to
saw this on Reddit.
When I was listening to it, I was playing Lego Batman.
Oh,
Brilliant game, by the way. So good. The way you can just punch blocks. Yeah, brilliant. Anyway, they were looking at an advert that was on Gumtree for a guy in Brighton who wanted someone to room with him in his flat. But the advert says something like, I spent a lot of time on an island somewhere, stationed there because I was in the military or something like that, and I was alone. My only friend was a walrus, and I miss him.
Yeah.
So I want whoever comes to live with me on my flat in Brighton, you don't have to pay me, but you have to wear a walrus suit for a certain amount of time each day. And also, here's a recording of a walrus. You have to do this walrus sound. You're not allowed to speak. And if you do, I'll kick you out and stuff like that. So Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier, the hosts, started talking about how funny it would be if this happened. And, well, it turns out that the advert was fake, but to their knowledge, it was real at this point. And the guy who faked the advert, by the way, was a producer on Tusk.
Really?
Yeah. But yeah, they started talking about, imagine a horror movie where this happens, and instead of getting them to wear a walrus suit, they turn him into a walrus.
Yeah.
And then they hired Justin Long. And so,
Michael
can you do
Parks.
that? Yeah, Michael Parks. And Harland Osment?
Haley.
Haley
I don't know how to say it. Kid from Artificial Intelligence,
Yeah.
who isn't a kid anymore, he's sort of a fat man.
He looks a bit like Mac.
Yeah, he looks a bit doughy.
Yeah, he does look quite doughy.
Yeah, but...
He looks, Monkey Island 3.
Oh, we're going back now.
Right at the end, where Guybrush gets turned into a child. It looks like that. Like, ew.
I'm aware of Monkey Island. The plot, story, gameplay.
Did you know, here's a little bit of film trivia before we get back onto Tusk. Monkey Island, the video game series about pirates, was going to be made into a movie in like the late 90s.
Yeah.
And it was going to be an animated movie made by Industrial Light and Magic, Lucasfilm's special effects company. But then they sort of went out of budget. So the writer of the Monkey Island movie, a few months later, sold a completely unrelated script to Disney called Pirates of the Caribbean.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And officially speaking, it's got nothing to do with it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but clearly it's the Monkey Island script, only with characters changed and names changed and stuff like that. And then, a few years ago, not too long ago, about 5 years ago, Ron Gilbert, who's the guy who made Monkey Island, on his blog, he mentioned in passing that he'd been influenced by a book called On Stranger Tides when he made Monkey Island. And then about 6 months later, Disney announced the new Pirates of the Caribbean film On Stranger Tides on this book.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so Ron Gilbert always blogs about how much he hates the fact that Disney ripped him off and stuff like that, because clearly he'll be entitled to millions. Yeah. But yeah, Tusk.
This is the sort of exact opposite of Horns for me, because I like Kevin Smith.
I love Kevin Smith.
I like
One of my favourite people.
I like Justin Long. I didn't really know who Michael Parks was until Red State.
He's great though, isn't he?
Yeah, really.
Have you
good.
watched? What's it called? From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah.
He's in that.
Does he get killed very early on?
I think most people get killed in that film.
Yeah.
So I'm going to guess yes.
Yeah.
But I watched that again when I was about 11.
Dusk Till Dawn, yeah, another one of those films.
I watched
Loved
that film.
It was great.
My dad made me watch that film because he was so excited for me to watch it, and he said, "Don't look into it, don't Google it or anything." So I watched it, and then spoilers, by the way, if you're going to watch it From Dusk Till Dawn. So I was watching it, and I didn't know that half an hour in or an hour in or whatever, it turns into a vampire movie.
Yeah.
And then Michael Parks makes a shotgun with a crucifix, and Selena Gomez, Salma Hayek is some sort of weird
she's
vampire lady.
Again, I've not seen it in like 5-10 years.
Yeah, it's really good. That
Probably not 10 years. Probably about 5 years. Yeah, that's a really good film.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tusk is sort of the exact opposite of Horns, because I like everybody in it. I listened to the podcast that the idea came from, and so I'm just sort of behind it in every way.
Yeah, me, yeah.
And so
also,
even if most people probably think it's shit, I'll probably go, "Oh, that was great."
Yeah,
Loved it.
yeah. I'm not gonna have too much. I wouldn't if I was a professional reviewer, which it could be easily. I would have to not review this because I've got too much invested in it, because I'm just behind it, even if it's bad. But luckily, it looks like it's going to be really, really good.
It does look really. It's like when Red State was announced. I thought,
yeah, that was weird because
he's going for something completely different here, and I don't know if this is a good idea.
Yeah, at that point,
and I avoided watching it for quite a long time, even though a lot of people said, "Oh, it's quite good actually."
The way I see it, at that point in time, Kevin Smith was essentially like the proto Judd Apatow. He sort of invented the bromance. He invented that genre of film where people stand around and talk about nothing. Well, Tarantino did sort of in the same year.
Yeah, in a different
but in
manner.
a very different way. and that was still influenced by cinema somewhat.
Yeah.
Whereas Kevin Smith's were more influenced by like radio and stuff like that, I guess, or just his friends.
Yeah, comedy and radio. And,
Yeah.
You know, Tarantino is a proper film nerd. He's like,
He's a bit spurgy.
he is like, if you went to school with him, you probably have stories about how weird he was.
Yeah.
He's
But that's
like that
where
kind of person.
that's where Kevin Smith got Michael Parks, because obviously Tarantino was in Dusk Till Dawn, and apparently Kevin Smith went round Tarantino's house one day,
Yeah.
and he was just like, "Come here, watch this video," and he put in a VHS, and it was like
I think I heard this.
it was like the best of Michael Parks that Quentin Tarantino himself had compiled.
Yeah.
So he'd sat down with like his big expensive editing machine and got loads of films and TV shows and stuff like that, obscure shit, and just edited together the
Yeah.
best of this actor.
Tarantino,
Just to show his friends. It's such a...
he's one of those people, like, you get it in a lot of industries. There'll be like one or two people that just absolutely complete, not, you know, nerd is not the right real word, but proper
So into
buffs
it.
about everything.
Yeah.
And especially, you know, a couple of decades ago, say, when you had VHS tapes, they took up such a huge amount of space that people would have like rooms and
Yeah,
rooms.
libraries.
Like this, you know, I'm going to do a wrestling thing here, but Jim Cornette, a famous guy, he's just, you know, a loudmouth sort of southern wrestling promoter and manager and stuff, but he's famous for just growing up, got his first job in the industry at like 15, 16, and he's just been in it ever since. And in his house, he's got his video library. He just has everything. Just everything on video. And it's like, I think I'm a fan of something because I have, you know, 5 or 6 events. It's not even in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
And they're just ridiculously successful at what they do. So Tarantino, yeah, he's mental and weird, nerdy, and he's got a huge chin.
He's got a weirdly shaped head in general. But he's grown into it, though.
Yeah.
Looked especially weird when he was younger, and then for a while it looked okay, and then when he was about late 30s, early 40s, it looked terrible. And now he looks alright.
Yeah, now he just looks sort of middle-aged.
Yeah.
With big chin.
Yeah, admittedly.
But yeah, he's a nerd. Great nerd, though. His films are great.
Yeah, his
People
films are
sort of
really
rag
good.
on him a bit, but I...
Well, people rag on him purely because people like his films so much, so people say he's overhyped.
Yeah, it is that whole kind of when something becomes very, very popular,
Yeah,
it becomes almost equally as popular to say that thing is terrible.
just to counterbalance it.
Yeah.
But to those people, I sort of want to say, have you ever watched Pulp Fiction?
Yeah.
Go and watch that. It's really good. It's not really good in like a really striking masterpiece sort of sense where you watch it and you go, oh my god. It's just
Yeah.
really good in the sense that like, whoa,
It's
I
just
didn't know
very, very
people
well
did
done.
things like this. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like such its own thing. And that's what Kevin Smith used to do with like Clerks and Mallrats and stuff like that. And then
It's very, very different.
and then
I
he
think-
announced he was doing horror, and everyone was like, "What?"
Oh, no.
With
don't
John
do it.
Goodman in it. What?
Yeah.
And then it turned out to be
Really
good.
good. Really good. Really enjoyed it.
And now he's doing Tusk.
I have a
Obviously,
feeling
it's like-
Tusk will be, you know, just as good.
Yeah. And this is going to be the first in a trilogy, by the way. Of
Yeah, you
movies.
told me about this the other day.
Yeah. Not a trilogy that's actually tied together, but a trilogy in the same sense as Edgar Wright's Cornetto trilogy.
trilogy.
Like Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz.
Will there be like little things that link them all together?
I would have thought so. In Tusk, in the trailer for Tusk, you see his daughter, Kevin Smith's daughter, and I believe Johnny Depp's daughter, weirdly,
Really?
sort of talking in the store. She's the one who says, "Oh, it's a boot 2 hours from here." And
Yeah.
just among
I
really
hate
makes fun of.
American guys.
Yeah, that's his daughter, and I think they're going to be the stars of the next film, Yoga Hosers.
Really?
Yeah, which I listened to the podcast where they came up with Yoga Hosers as well, and it was the first half of it they were talking about Eric Cantona.
Really?
Yeah, which is weird.
The seagulls, they smell the mackerel and they will follow.
Yeah, and then the reason they were talking about it is because this was just when Shia LaBeouf went mental.
Yeah.
And he said he did that. He did the seagulls will follow the mackerel
Really?
thing. Yeah. Like, and everyone was like, "Oh, Shia LaBeouf is all arty and stuff." And it's
Stole
all
it from Eric
Cantona said that, and it was in the fallout of like him having stolen the idea of
Yeah.
his movie from that Ghost World film or the comic that was based on.
He's done a lot of that, hasn't he? He's
Yeah, he
good.
did a lot of it in a short stretch,
space of time.
and everyone was like, "Oh, he used to be great in Even Stevens." Do you remember Even Stevens?
Have you seen Beans?
So, oh yeah, he looks terrible.
He's about 23.
He looks
about
about
50.
50. Yeah, he looks awful.
So
Let's
bad.
not talk about that. It makes me sad.
So bad. I used to love Beans.
But Shia LaBeouf
Yeah.
in
Good as fuck.
in Even Stevens was a
The
comic
best.
genius.
It's one of the best shows.
Yeah, his performance in every episode blew me up. I admittedly was 9,
But I loved it.
but
every single
that was
episode.
like I watched that and I had hope.
His timing was great.
Yeah,
Great
I had
show.
hope for like child actors and like.
And I
child
think his sister
comedians
was hot.
like
I
that.
can't remember.
It wasn't his real sister; it was an actor. They just got someone in.